Aye.
Commissioner Art?
Aye.
Commissioner Mack?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashworth?
Aye.
Commissioner Skeen?
Aye.
Motion tables, item passes. The next item is PL 1882, The Pinnacle at Getwell Farms. Request for rezoning of 167 acres from A to PUD. The subject property is located on the northwest corner of Getwell Road and the I-269 interchange in section 33, Township 2, South, Range 7, West. AERC represented on. Mr. Dozer, please present the planning staff report and comment.
Yes, sir. This is PL 1882. The request is for zone 179 acres from A to PUD. The previous agenda said 167. The remaining acreage is unusable on the south side of the interstate and is not included in the application. So the parcel as a whole is 179 acres, but the only proposed rezoning area is on those uses you see in your staff report in that plan. The applicant did clarify that. This is the northwest corner of Getwell and 269. Capital Investments LLC on behalf of Arthur Anderson, who owns the property. The request is to go from A to PUD. The description of the PUD district is included in your staff report, but generally speaking, this is a mixed-use development and would be tied to the plan text that's in your staff report. So the uses, any bulk requirements about height, lot size, any of those associated bulk requirements are tied to this plan text. So the underlying zoning is directly tied to the application in front of you. The future land use map of the city's general development plan designates this subject property split between two place types. The first of being mixed use and the second being activity master plan commercial. It's about evenly split between those two, and I did provide a full description from the existing comprehensive plan in your staff report there. In the first couple of pages, you can see a general description of mixed use and that activity master plan commercial. The breakdown of the areas in this project, I've got a brief description because it is a robust plan text, but Area A is proposed to be industrial / commercial office park and encompasses 113 acres. The quick highlights are there's proposed to be 5 building sites. Each site would be a maximum of 500,000 square feet. That number is flexible, so if it wanted to be a series of smaller buildings, but the maximum size building would be 500,000 square feet. The bulk requirements, meaning the setbacks, the height, the building area ratio, is similar to the M1 district. It does include a maximum building height of 50 feet, and it does have the design regulation of no metal buildings allowed, which is allowed in M1, but not in this proposed Area A. Area B is large retail. It's very similar to that of the C2 Highway Commercial District and their uses. Maximum building height of 40 feet. Generally speaking, this is proposed to be a big box retail site. C, hospitality, light commercial. This is primarily focused for hotel. Hotel, dining, and office space are all listed in the use requirement, but the plan of the text is for that 12 acres to be hospitality focused. Area 5 is proposed for a C-store gas station with diesel allowed. Some site-specific requirements are pitched roof on the canopy, the remaining aspects of which would be the city's design standards. Area E is dining, retail focused, is 6 acres. Similar to Area C, it includes some retail uses and other light commercial uses, which is similar to our C1 neighborhood commercial district. Area F is proposed as a mixed use, 12 acres. It's the only residential aspect of the plan. 12 acres of that is mixed use buildings, 150 total loft units, 25 per building, and ground floor retail is required. The maximum building height of those is three stories. Area G is everything green in the plan, the common open space to be maintained by the Owners Association. This does include the proposed landscaping buffer requirements between the proposed uses and a substantial buffer on the south side against 269, which is shown on page 17. A large berm with 3 rows of plantings that's detailed in there is what's proposed in that southern line. So generally that Area G, that common open space, is to be maintained by the Owners Association and primarily is buffer yard uses. The utility plan on page 24 shows proposals for water and sewer, which would be required before any phase of this development goes. It's in accordance with city and state standards. All the utilities have to be installed. We did request, and the applicant did provide for a Tullahoma extension. The section line of Tullahoma Road does encompass the western portion of this site. So we requested the right-of-way construction of their share of that section, and that is in the plan for the future Tullahoma North and South connection. As always, I'll read these next three criteria for the record, but in any consideration tonight, I would recommend we focus our approval or denial on these three criteria. How the proposed amendment conforms to the general development plan, why this existing zoning district classification of the property in question is inappropriate or improper, that major economic, physical, or social changes, if any, have occurred in the vicinity of the property in question that were not anticipated by the general development plan that substantially altered the basic character of the area, which make the proposed amendment to the zoning district map appropriate. And he did provide responses to each of those, and those are in your staff report and in the plan text as well. The only staff comments we have is with the text requirements, any other aspects of this plan are subject to design regulations. I would like to read that one for the record. And the subdivision process should still be filed, would be the next step that we see if this is approved tonight, would be the final plats coming through. With this being a PUD, this would serve as the preliminary plat, so this process we're doing right now proposes to encompass both the zoning and the preliminary plat together. I did provide proposed motions to approve, to deny, and or table, whichever you see fit tonight. And the applicants here represent the application. I'm available if you have any questions.
Any questions, Mr. Cados? We having a sound issue or want me to wait? So we good? So we can wait just one minute.
Okay. And John Stevenson's here tonight representing that application.
John Stevenson, 1589 Johnston Road, Hernando, Mississippi. I'm here on behalf of company Capital 55 Investments and myself and Mr. Anderson, property owner. I'd like to thank y'all for allowing me to speak tonight about this proposed development. This is not the first time that you folks have seen this particular property. I think this may be the third or fourth zoning attempt on this particular piece of property. And there's many reasons, I believe, that those attempts have failed ultimately. Regardless of that, I believe everybody is in agreement that this is a unique piece of property, kind of a blank slate, that's ideal for commercial development. So I kind of believe this is a rough jewel on, Getwell Road exit, and would like to see it move forward. I've always believed that the entire property needed to be zoned together, not piecemeal, and I believe that this PUD accomplishes that. This is a kind of a culmination, a compromise plan, where I went back through the previous attempts and looked at them, and went and talked to the neighbors who live nearby, or most of the neighbors, and kind of found what their concerns were, concerns of stakeholders around the community, and kind of put this plan together as a result. So I believe this gives us an opportunity both for new commercial space, new retail space, some new loft space, and industrial space, which we've designed specifically in this plan to take advantage of this site where we've incorporated maximum sizes on the buildings to kind of limit its usefulness for distribution and focus it more into light manufacturing, high-tech manufacturing, medical manufacturing, but also data center and data center support operations. The one thing the site has is enormous amounts of power available. And so with the new XAI supercluster in Memphis and the companies that are now directly shopping for support facilities, this would make an ideal site to support them. So I'd just like to go over a few points. Which button? The site, Getwell, obviously, Getwell and I-269, from when the original plan was, we have a PUD now across the street. We have an interstate. The nature and character of the neighborhood has obviously changed. I will say this, in any development plan that you have in Hernando, the first thing you have to ask yourself is traffic, right? So right now, this Getwell Road is a 2-lane road. However, we have an MPO application by the city and the county, and they have already scored this very highly. Now, we're in negotiations, the city is in negotiations right now, but we foresee that this will be expanded to 5 lanes within the next MPO funding cycle because of how the project scored. So that's one thing. The other thing is, this will not affect traffic on Commerce Street in any way. So we're far away from Commerce Street, we're far away from the Commerce Street interchange, and you might be able to make the proposition that if this development is successful, we'll be able to pull traffic away from Commerce Street. Let's talk about the development plan. Side A, we did include
commercial office in that as an option, simply because I was approached by one of our local hospital chains about doing a medical office building near or at this site. I didn't know the scale of what they wanted to do, so we went ahead and zoned that office park and also have it available if they want something smaller in Section C. B, we're looking for something as small as a supermarket to as big as a Costco. Unfortunately, you really cannot market to the large chain retailers across the United States unless you have a pad ready. They don't really want to develop from the ground up. They want it ready. They want to evaluate the property that you have and then either move or not. So this would allow us to go ahead and get that site ready. D, the C-store is very similar to what you saw the last time when it came before you. However, one thing we are doing is we've taken the bulk aesthetic requirements from the PUD that you approved at I believe it's the Reserve at Getwell Farms across the highway, and used the same exact aesthetic requirements on this PUD as well. So the idea being is we want both sides of the interstate to look and feel the same. So we just imported those over, so that's one of the reasons we're not going to go with whatever that service station looked like the last time. It needs to look like the other side of the highway as well, so that we kind of keep that feel that you would see in a Madison or a place like that, including pitched roofs on the canopies and everything else, it costs more money, but it'll look really good instead of the flat roofs that you see a lot of times on those. E is your traditional bank, fast food, typical out parcel that you would see along a road. And then F is lofts over retail. And also with those same design standards carried over from the other side of the highway to this. We've tried to look for consistency and continuity so that we have a positive look and feel to the development. The big thing that we had to go back and forth with the city on is how do we make this look attractive? That's a problem, right? Well, there's two things. We've upgraded the materials, no metal buildings. You're not going to get something that looks like what AWG has over there. Plus, just for example, AWG is a 100-foot tall building almost. So we've limited half the size, plus you're going to have to see basically concrete tilt-up construction or something like that for these to be acceptable. The other thing we decided is the commercial area, if you've ever seen the topography of the area, is up on a hill. It actually sits higher than the interstate exit bridge. So And the Section A actually sits down in kind of a hole. So Austin had the idea that what we do is build a 12 to 15-foot berm between the commercial and the industrial, and then top it with plantings that, when they're fully developed and grown, will give us something in the neighborhood of 50 to 60-foot barrier between the commercial and industrial. And then we decided to go ahead and stretch that all the way down the interstate in Section A, so that when it's fully mature, you'll end up with a 50 to 60-foot barrier for aesthetic purposes. So for all intents and purposes, you will not be able to see much of the industrial area as you're driving by, or if you're in the commercial section. Because of the way we design the industrial buildings, we believe that truck traffic is going to be fairly minimum. You heard before, when AWG comes on, they have about 400 trucks a day that are running out of that, in and out of that facility. We're anticipating somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 70 trucks a day if this gets utilized how we think it will for manufacturing and or data center support. So it's significantly less than that. Sewer and water is obviously what's held up development in this area before. We have to do a 1.1 mile extension of gravity sewer from the Mackinville Road pumping station to Kura Pumping Station. And we have to do a 1.3 mile, 12-inch water main extension from the new water tower located at Madison Lakes under the Tullahoma overpass, the future Tullahoma overpass, and to the western, that's just to the western portion of the property. Then we have to extend it, obviously, all the way through the property to service the entire development, and as well as providing extensions for the adjoining property owners, both to the north and to our east across Getwell. We won't bore Getwell Road, but we'll have it there available for them to connect to. Anyway, we appreciate any questions. I'd like to answer any questions that you might have, and we can go from there.
So when you went, you said you talked to the surrounding neighbors and everything.
That was my first thing I did.
Okay, so what were some of the concerns that they had about the development in this area?
Traffic is a big deal. Another thing is nobody, the ones that I had talked to had never been approached before about any of the zoning applications previously, and they just wanted to hear from me what I planned to do. I asked them questions about what they liked and didn't like about the previous ones, and they liked the idea of the commercial there as a general feedback rather than industrial for the whole property. And some of it was they were wanting to see, some of them wanted to see, hey, will I be able to get sewer and water to my property, right? And in the future. And so it really, beyond traffic, they really didn't, most of the people I talked to, individual things like uses or things like that didn't really come up a ton, other than traffic, obviously, which, when they understood that Getwell Road's fixing to be widened within the next 5 years to 5 lane, that takes a lot of that worry off their head.
Okay. One other question. In looking at this, looks like everything feeds in through a roundabout there.
That's correct.
Do you foresee any problems with, if you have 50, 70, 100 trucks a day, all of that feeding in with all of your other traffic that's going to all of your shops and store, all of it's having to feed through that roundabout as well?
Well, if we get the kind of truck volume that we anticipate, no. That roundabout's going to be designed for a semi-traffic, and also, it's also going to be designed where any trucks cannot go. You notice the roundabout has a northern branch that goes up where the mixed use. Trucks will not be able to physically go up that road. They'll only be able to come in, go around, and go to the back.
Will they be able to come in from that way, though?
No, they will not be able to come in that way.
They won't be able to
either.
come in through F?
No, it will not be physically possible for them to make the turns. We're going to put medians and everything else, because if the truck comes in, I want them to come in, go to the warehouse, and leave and exit right to the interstate.
Because if you have big box stores there and you have all this other around it, you can anticipate a good bit of car traffic through all that as well.
That's right.
So-
And, you get, big box stores get a lot of trucks themselves, and so they're used to navigating that. So we feel like the plan we got will accommodate that.
Oh, God. Adding to that, all the way over on the master plan on page 23, all the way to the west, you've got that another primary entrance planned.
To the
Is that
west,
the Tullahoma extension?
Yes, sir.
Go up through there?
yes, sir.
Is that part of this plan, or is it waiting on Tullahoma first and then do that?
So we're not going to build that. We're going to either bond it with the city and/or do a payment in lieu of for the future Tullahoma, so the city can bank the money. And when they decide to build Tullahoma out, can use it at that point.
That would solve the truck traffic and then sort of a warehouse entrance.
Right. I mean, eventually you'll have a Tullahoma Road that will go all the way up to Pleasant Hill and connect that. And that possibly could be another exit for it, but at this point, I don't think any truck would want to do that, just because by the time, that road up there is not suitable. Until Pleasant Hill, I mean, that's not, is that Pleasant Hill Road? Yeah.
North.
Yeah. So Pleasant Hill is slated to become 5-lane, but that's pretty far in the future, from my understanding. So until it does, I would not, those trucks it would not be suitable for them to go that way.
And then follow up with that, you had mentioned manufacturing and data center.
That's our hope.
Is there a plan to restrict warehouse distribution? 'Cause
No, sir.
Limit the number of trucks, because if, I guess, forecasting, if manufacturing and data center type businesses don't fill in the space and then you bring in a warehousing distribution,
Sure.
then your truck traffic changes.
Absolutely. Truck traffic increases at that point, which is one of the reasons why we limited the size of the buildings, because if we keep the buildings smaller, then the distribution companies don't like to use them. I mean, for example, Williams-Sonoma, they want 2 million square feet and million square foot buildings, because that's what's most efficient for them. So if we limit, the idea was we limit to 500,000 square feet. Well, you've automatically, if you do get distribution, it's going to be on the low side of moderate to small distribution. And then that'll help restrict the truck traffic. The other thing that restricts this, if you'll notice, there's a lot of drainage that runs through this property. It kind of slices it up into some thirds there. That right there restricts the size of the buildings that we can actually put. MDEQ is not going to allow us to fill in those major drains. And so of the buildings, 2 of the buildings will only be able to be at a maximum 125 to 150,000 square feet. There's only one site for a building that greater than 300,000 square feet, and that's where we have 2 300,000 square foot buildings. You might be able to get a 300,000 square foot building next to the big box location, but just the topography of the site is going to limit a lot of that.
I remember an issue last time that this came before the planning commission and the board eventually. It was called a truck stop. I don't think it was a convenience store. It was introduced. The concern was about overnight trucks.
Right.
Parking.
So we prohibit overnight parking.
And obviously, I mean, you don't want them parking in your big box retail space.
No.
How will you preclude that? Just a general?
We have a ban on, we'll have a property owner association, we have a ban in anywhere in the commercial residential area for any overnight parking for trucks. Obviously, we'll have to rely on the city to help us enforce that. Obviously, they can park in the industrial parking lots. I mean, we can't stop that, but that's where it's supposed to be if it is.
But not overnight.
But not overnight. They can just park, they can't sleep or stay there, right? The one thing that has kind of assuaged my mind about it is we do know that Love's is now shopping and planning to go to approval at some location further east on I-269 for a truck stop. If that does happen, that will take care of some of the problems that we have with trucks stopping on the exits and sleeping overnight. But there's no guarantee that that happens.
So, but you said so y'all were not gonna do that 2-lane or Tullahoma.
We
Essentially,
are required to build it, so if the city wants us to build it,
Right.
we will place a bond until the time comes for us to build it. And if the city wants us to pay them a truck full of cash, so they can build it at a future, if they want to go ahead and extend the southern portion and maybe connect to it, or the northern portion, then we will do a payment in lieu of, one or the other. And it's really not up to me to say which one it is, it's up to the city to tell me what they want to do. But we're agreeing to the obligation to do our portion of that road.
Well, even if you did extend it, there's no direct access to I-269 because it goes under.
That's right. And even if I built it on our property line, there's no road
go
that
anywhere.
connects to it from the north or the south. It's just dirt right now.
Well, I mean, you see that in a lot of things, the situations like sidewalks, you know, there's a lot of commercial businesses and new businesses that have a sidewalk and there's nothing to connect it on either side.
That's right. And we can do that if the city wants to. But, you know, the city always requires a lane improvement for development. This is what they wanted us to do.
So what is gonna be the lane improvement on Getwell?
We're going to be responsible for none, but you have the MPO application that's already in to the Metropolitan Planning Organization that will expand Getwell to 5 lanes, and that takes care of the problem.
Who knows when that'll be?
Within 5 years. That's within the MPO funding cycle.
I'm guessing there'll be have you guys done a traffic study or anything to see about a red light? Cause will a red light be warranted or?
Well, since the MPO application is in, MDOT will make that determination as part of our file for our access in there. And since they're already in the planning, I've already talked to MDOT, they would go ahead as part of the planning for the widening in the MPO project, either create a roundabout there or a traffic light. Most likely, MDOT would want a roundabout on Getwell at that point, because you're within 500 feet of the interstate exit. And that's what MDOT seems to like to do now.
Well, like the forecasting of the Getwell to 5 lanes doesn't necessarily have an impact on the amount of truck traffic. Remember your numbers, you're estimating 60 to 70, 50 to 60?
50 to 75 a day.
50 to 75, that's roughly 2.5 to 3 trucks every 24 hours. But then the businesses themselves, provided they don't run on a 24-hour schedule for dispatch, then you're looking at 6 to 8 trucks an hour. Is that going to be enough road infrastructure with that traffic circle to support that many trucks?
So you're talking 6 to 8 hours over 12-hour, 6 to 8 per
6 to 8
hour
trucks about an hour, every hour, on average,
on
12-hour range.
On a 12-hour range. Actually, I think you're looking at what, 5 to 6 an hour on a 12-hour range?
Fuzzy math. Let me see if I can do it with a calculator.
So six an hour on a 12-hour period would be 72 trucks at the upper end. So 5 would be, around 60.
Well, the question is then, is that traffic circle going to support that type of a truck volume along with a big box retailer, hotels, mixed-use retail?
So anytime,
I'm sorry, John.
yeah.
How many total vehicle traffic do you expect with the truck traffic, I guess is the question I'm looking at.
Well, the road, if we magically could put down the entire development right now, it would not be able to support, as it currently exists, this development, period. Just would not work, okay? That being said, we would not be able to break ground on this development before 18 to 24 months. If we get the approvals, We still have to go to the Army Corps of Engineers. We still have to get approvals for MDEQ. We still have to get MDOT approvals. Then we have to go through engineering, planning, and finance. Then we can start construction. So let's say we start construction in phases. You know, by the time we get here, and then developments like this don't happen, they don't get built out overnight. I would expect this development to take somewhere between 5 and 10 years to be fully completed at the earliest. And by that time, the 5-lane road on the MPO funding cycle would already be complete. So that's my contention, is by the time the traffic that we need for the road to carry, it will be there by the time we get it built out.
Let's forecast that out to where that 5-lane road is in, it carries the traffic.
Right.
But then, what's the estimated amount of traffic once it gets off of Getwell into this development to include the trucks? Are we looking at 72 trucks plus 100 vehicles?
I have not done an internal traffic study on the inside of the development.
That's, I guess
So
that's
I
where I'm
cannot-
going with a current design. I know we're getting ahead of ourselves on the whole traffic circle thing, but
Right.
we're just trying to mitigate all of the concerns about mixing commercial and industrial traffic.
Well, I will say this, you know, you always mix truck traffic in any kind of commercial environment with automobiles. So anybody that's gone to a Sam's or Walmart or, those trucks are moving in and out, supplying the facility. It's not as much, but it is. And so we know how to navigate this.
Well, but Sam's doesn't have 3 giant warehouses behind its building either, so.
Some do. But yeah, I get your point. It makes sense.
Quick question for me. So on that third question that we kind of asked about the major economic, physical, or social changes, so in your response, you kind of mentioned the development of that 69 to 69 area.
Yes, ma'am.
And I agree, you know, it's definitely changed, but I would like to hear your opinion. If we kind of zoom out and maybe go one exit from this Getwell Road exit, I'd like to hear your opinion on why we would need kind of another like residential shopping development if we already kind of have one approved in the Delta Landing property.
Well, Delta Landing is a very small commercial section, and it's a very large residential section. So the amount of commercial in there compared to what we're talking about here is quite different. The other thing is this is a main arterial road feeding into South Haven, and also, so we kind of visualize this as servicing the south part of South Haven, Nesbit, as well as Hernando because of location. Now, it's inside the city of Hernando because Hernando, I think, very wisely annexed this area for future use, specifically because of the future anticipated property tax and sales tax revenue generated off of that for the city's use. And I know y'all cannot consider that in your approval, but that's what I would say. This exit is designed, everybody envisioned this when I-269 and was decided that was coming through there. This was going to be commercial.
Kind of similar, like, you know, to meet the need. I mean, you can speak on it. It's your project to the south of it.
Yes,
know,
sir.
that you're involved in that project as well. It's kind of similar with the retail and the lofts, the C-store, other than your big box commercial. You have, I think you have hotels on that side as well.
That's right.
And then, other than the industrial warehouse part of it, kind of similar. I don't know if we're going to need, there's a public need for 6 hotels at that exit.
Well, I think the other side has 2, and we're limited to 2.
Okay, I just saw 3 buildings here. So.
Yeah. You're limited to a maximum of 2 hotels there, and you're limited to the other section. We've got it zoned where it can be either, we can actually lose a hotel. I've had some preliminary discussions with an automobile dealership at the exit. We could do that with 1 hotel, or we could do, say, 2 hotels with medical office, or there's a variety of things that can be done there. And the market will absorb the hotels as it absorbs the hotels. think one of the problems South Haven and Snowden Grove have is a lack of hotel rooms to feed Snowden Grove, and this location is ideal for that.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Thank you.
Anyone support or against this item, please come forward and state your name in its entirety.
Good evening, Board. My name is Bryce Dickerson. I'm the resident at 900 Getwell Road in Nesbit, directly across from the proposed project. I know that Mr. Stevenson and I have had many conversations about concerns about ideas of, just valuing my input, so I appreciated that. I could confidently say that I know that 2 months ago, or a few months ago, I spoke against the gas station, but I am very much for this project just because of the plan that's in place. I know we're looking 5 years out on the expansion of Getwell, but I think that this could be a great catalyst for growth for the North Hernando area, as well as properties on the other side of Getwell, my neighbors. I just think that would be a great value to our local community, to the city of Hernando, and I just wanted to express my appreciation and approval for this project. So, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mike Wiseman. I live at 1100 Getwell. And my brother lives right next door to me, and y'all have seen me before on the other three proposals. And I was adamantly against all those others. And again, I appreciate Mr. Stevens coming to me and my family and asking us our opinion. That means a lot. And everybody I've talked to that lives in our area, we've talked about it, and growth's coming whether we like it or not. I've been there all my life. I wish we was back when I was in high school, but we just ain't, and growth's coming. So of all the proposals that we've seen, this makes the most sense to us, that will complement our property. The others, we're going to take value away from our property. So to John's point, there were some things that concerned us. The traffic is one. Well, we got that covered. Our property values were a big part of it, and the sewer. If the sewer's not out there, our property's not worth anything because we have smaller lots of property. But Mr. Stevens bringing the sewer out there, right there in front of our house, and it'll be to where we can connect to it. That adds to the value of our property, and that's what we were looking for. We just didn't want to lose anything through any of this stuff. The other thing is, this is just more attractive. It's not just a truck stop, and if you got 7 bays of diesel, that's a truck stop, partner. The C-store doesn't face out to Getwell. You got to go up the road to get to the C-store. It's just a whole lot more attractive. So we have no problem. I think it's a great idea, and it would just enhance the whole area. So thank y'all.
Anyone else support or against this item?
I got a question. John, you said the sewer is just going to be ran to Getwell. It's not going underneath Getwell to those residences, right?
No, sir.
I guess that'll be on the city.
Typically, if they wanted to develop their property and run the sewer, they would have to bore Getwell themselves. But a bore under one road is a whole lot cheaper than having to run it, hundreds of yards and then
Right,
go in
yeah.
there. So what our plan is to provide a manhole right next to Getwell Road so that they can bore easily and connect to it if they ever do so in the future. Any other questions?
Is there a motion to approve, deny, or table this item?
I make a motion to recommend approval of a rezoning request by Capital Investments LLC on behalf of Arthur W. Anderson Jr., owner of the property, 179 acres identified in the description listed in the text, located just west of Getwell Road North, east of Mackingvale Road, and north of Interstate 269, situated in Section 33, Township 2 South, Range 7 West, from current zoning A Agricultural District to PUD, based on the following findings, 1, 2, and 3.
Austin, does that need to be 179 acres, or there was
So 179 is the whole parcel. 167.
Correction, 167 acres.
second?
Commissioner Thorne,
Aye.
Commissioner Safley,
Aye.
Commissioner Jordan. Commissioner Art.
Aye.
Commissioner Max.
Aye.
Commissioner Ashworth.
Aye.
Commissioner Skeen.
Aye.
Motion to approve this item passes. Next item is PL 1881, 1582 Getwell, we're talking about the Getwell. 5282 Green Tea Road, conditional use. Request for a mobile food vendor. The subject property is located on the north side of Green Tea Road, east of Mackinville. John Tague. Mr. Cadoz, you please present planning staff report and comments.
Yes, sir. Is Mr. Tank here? Good deal. All right, this is PL 1881. The conditional use request is for a food truck to be operated at 1582 Green Tea Road. This is the Gatorade Fieldhouse, north side of Green Tea, east of Mackinville. John Tague is here tonight. He's requesting food truck availability. This property is zone C2, and so food trucks are available under conditional use, and so that's the request tonight. If approved, y'all can attach conditions. As in previous cases, it's been hours of operations, number of customers, et cetera. Anything that approves, that goes directly to that approval or denial criteria. For the record, I'll read this once. The next two applications are conditional uses, so I'll just read this once for the record. How this proposed use will not substantially increase traffic hazards or congestion. How this proposed use will not substantially increase fire hazards. How the proposed use will not adversely affect the character of the neighborhood. How it will not adversely affect the general welfare of the city. How it will not overtax public utilities or community facilities, and how it will conform to the recommendations of the general development plan. And he did provide responses to each of those. Mr. Tague can respond to the specifics of the application, but generally speaking, the existing parking lot is what's proposed for the location of the food trucks. And I did provide proposed motions to approve, deny, or table your staff report, and I'm available for any questions.
Any question, Mr. Cadoz? Will the applicant please come forward and state your name and address in its entirety?
Good evening, I'm John Tague. I'm at 6394 Cody Cove, Olive Branch, but I work at 1582 Green Tea Road in Hernando.
I guess the main question, is there some sort of hours that you're looking for approval, or days, or trucks?
So this is sort of an infancy as far as a concept, but the idea would be to bring in food trucks during the tournament times, which would be the weekends. It's not every weekend. I probably do about 20 weekends a year right now, to give them another food option other than just a concession stand located in the building. Those hours are usually 6 to 10 on Friday nights, and then they run about 8 in the morning till 6 at night on Saturdays and Sundays is pretty much. And then also possibly doing a first Tuesday of the month type thing between 11 and 2 o'clock in the afternoon to just have multiple food trucks in the area as like a food rodeo type availability of food in the north part of Hernando.
Have you thought about a number of food trucks?
My envision, it wouldn't be more than 8 to 10 at the high end. I'm thinking more of 3 or 4. I just don't think there's that many food trucks that are local down here. If I was up in Memphis, it'd probably be 15 to 20, but from what I've sampled, 8 to 10 would be a good number for a weekend.
8 to 10 trucks at the same time?
Yes, all located inside the parking lot, nothing up on the street.
Do you have a designated area in the parking lot that would be?
I would probably push them to the farther end, of the outside end, furthest away from the building, so not to mess with the traffic, or I'd put them up on the grass on the northern end of the southern end of the building, completely off the parking lot, but on the property, below the road.
My concern is the pedestrians who are gonna be leaving the field house, going back and forth, and creating trucks that far away from the building. Is there any way to get them closer to the?
I can put them right up against the building if the safety is a concern, absolutely. My ultimate answer is, and it's weather dependent, there's about 100 by 100 yard field right to the south of the building that I already put bounce houses in for the kids for the tournaments. I'd put them on that field would be my ultimate win, but that's sort of weather dependent. This week I wouldn't do it. But if it was dry enough, they can pull right up on that.
That's a logical, good point. I mean, because you could walk right down the sidewalk to it, correct?
Right, you never have to step onto the parking lot.
I think 8 to 10 food trucks at one time is a lot.
Yeah, that would be the home run for me.
Well, I think it goes into, I think there's two things we're talking about here. One is the conditional use of a food truck, and then the food truck park that we had talked about before, which is more of a permanent thing. Is there conditional use for a food truck park as a conditional use? Where's the limit that we get beyond the conditional use of a food truck to where it's multiple food trucks?
So when we drafted the ordinance, it was almost impossible to do like a one-size-fits-all. And so the mobile food vendor is what we put in conditional use. And I know Vance Daly kind of presented more of a permanent food truck park. But the same criteria applies. We don't have a checkbox of each one's for what makes it a park or not. It's more of a case-by-case basis. And honestly, unique situations like this, where there's a lot of pedestrian traffic in one facility, and like AWG, I expect them to probably ask for a lunch option for trucks to set up during lunchtime when there's no other options available. So the conditional use process, what that does is allows y'all to put conditions on it, like, okay, only during tournaments or only on the weekends, and it has to be in these locations to really kind of do it on a case-by-case basis more than an ordinance standalone, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. When you're talking about 20 possible times a year. But the tournaments don't follow that rigid schedule based on a conditional use where we would say twice a month. But then if your tournaments are packed together, we have 3 in
Correct.
1 month, and that goes against.
Yes, for example, this month I have all 4 weeks booked.
How do you craft this conditional use in such a way that supports that flexibility?
You can only say, you could say Friday through Sunday only, or on Tuesdays, and then you could say a total of 30 weekends a year and operate within that boundary if he packs them in or spreads them out. Just a suggestion, just for.
No, that would definitely work, because I can't project more than 90 days as to my exact schedule. I can give you a rough, but it's 1 year this weekend's filled, the next year it might not be.
When do you anticipate starting food truck?
Like I said, it's in its infancy. I hadn't approached anybody officially until I got all this done. I would hope to have food trucks maybe by mid-May, try it for the first time mid-May when we have a pretty good sized tournament coming up. So 2 to 3 weeks out, and I'd be lucky if I got 1 or 2 trucks, honestly. Because they book about 60 days out for specific spots.
And we were talking about the location of where you would park, so a lot of food trucks, I think, and I'm not familiar with the licensing of a food truck, but they would have to have a Hernando license to operate on that. Self-contained with their own generator, and that's.
My anticipation is they're completely self-contained.
Does that fall with the Hernando City permit?
So we're navigating that currently, but state law dictates our business licensure. And so the way we're doing it now is just a food truck comes and gets a business license. Our fire department will inspect the truck, usually the day before the event, or they can come before, to make sure it's safe. If there are any prepared food permits required, we're learning that some trucks have them, some trucks don't. Like the Popsicle truck doesn't, because it's regulated by its own facility. But the full-service cooking truck does. And so in the short, you come get a business license, and we kind of determine that truck by truck basis when you get your business license. And then It's even depending on how long you're there. There's a transient vendor. If you're there less than a certain number of days a year, if it's more than that, it's a permanent. So you need a business license is the short answer for each truck.
But that, each truck has a self-contained power. They don't rely on.
Yeah, they have generators, yeah. But we just, that last one that we did, the last meeting over here, close to downtown, we required them to have supply power to the generator because it was right next to a funeral home.
Yeah,
And it was
a
right
noise
next-
ordinance issue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
noise issue, yeah. But in my opinion, this location, I mean, there's noise isn't
Outer inside. It is outside.
Yes.
I mean, I think food trucks would go great during his tournament, for sure, but the only issue I have is would support 10 food trucks.
I think it works itself out in,
Yeah.
in that fact.
Well, and it's one of those, and I'm kind of foreseeing. You get 2 trucks in May. Your next tournament, you get 3 trucks. Then the food truck community, it's like, oh my gosh, this is a hot spot. Then you're gonna have them lining up. Then you're gonna have to have a limit on how many.
Correct.
I can only hold 6.
I anticipate at the highest end would be 10 at the highest end.
Can
But
you handle, that's what, I guess the question we're asking, do you have enough space
space-wise, yes,
for a
absolutely.
maximum of 10?
Yes.
Because that's how we're gonna craft the conditional use.
Yes, from a
No more than
space
10.
standpoint, I have plenty of space in that open field for 10 and/or the parking lot. I can absolutely put 10 food trucks in that parking lot.
And then part of that is during you had mentioned 8 to 6 on the weekends?
Yeah,
6
during
to-
the day.
6 to 10 on Friday nights?
Yes.
Would pedestrians or people using the food trucks, would they have access to the facility for hand washing and latrine, bathroom?
Yeah, the anticipation would be their patrons from inside the building, so they'd absolutely have access in and out.
And would that also apply on the first Tuesday?
Yes,
food truck?
the
You
lobby
mentioned-
would be available
okay.
for hand washing.
And would you provide a place for them to eat, or would that be more of a come and go type
That's more of a
thing?
come and go. I don't
Okay.
really even have a place for them to eat out of the concession stand. It's a sit in the bleachers type thing.
A little naive on this. So, like you talked about, the word gets around. So, this is a hot spot. So, people have contacted you when they have their slot. Would you have, I'm sure you probably would, you would just have to turn around, a vendor just shows up and says, okay, I just want to set up.
No, I
how
wouldn't
would
allow
you-
that. If someone didn't contact me and asked to come and organize it, I'd
Or they
turn.
pulled up that morning, you would just turn them around?
I would, unless I'm got completely a ton of space, but if I was close on space, I wouldn't let someone just drive up. I
Then
have
if
no
that person
control of
just
that.
showed up, that mean they'd missed the building license and all of that, business license and all that step.
Right, if they just showed up late, that would be my number one concern, is they're not really legit.
So they wouldn't be able to come regardless if
They-
you
they
had the
shouldn't.
space.
My question would be, is it my responsibility to check the licenses?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine, I just want to make sure. So that would be part of my
It's the-
checklist.
The food truck owner's responsibility to get the license and the business permit, but it's where they park, it's your
It's my-
responsibility
absolutely.
to verify that they did go through that. As what Commissioner Keith was just talking about, somebody could get, hey, they're all parking up here today, let's go up there, and
Right.
they just roll in without you knowing it and set up, and they may have never gone through and got a permit.
Correct. I have had vendors show up at tournaments prior to this and sent them away because I know I'm not permitted, so that's the whole point. That's this whole conversation is starting.
Am I to understand that you intend to put these food trucks in your parking lot
Yes,
during the tournament?
yes.
Are you going to do this during your basketball tournament?
Yes.
For real? That's hard for me to understand, having been there and found it difficult to find a parking place, and people were parking up on the road. I can't see where you have space. And you've got plenty of ground out there outside of the parking lot, that's true.
Well, like I said, if weather's permitting, I'll put them in the front of the building on the grass off the parking lot. But if not, I'd put them, as someone else commented, up against the building, up against the curb, and I only take away one lane of parking. Giving up 8 to 10 spots is not going to have much
Not enough
effect.
spots as it is what I'm saying. Not during those tournaments that I was at. I found it rather especially as the time between the games,
Right, when there's a transfer of teams.
all the traffic moving in and out of there was rather challenging at times to get in and out of there. Now, if you had a designated either on the north end or the south end, probably on the south end,
South end would be where I'd go.
up there in that area, I could understand putting them there, but I can't understand putting them in that parking lot. Not during the tournaments that I've been to. I mean, it's just too many cars. I
Yeah, I
don't
have to
know.
agree with, we're looking at the map right here in the parking lot. If you put them, could you put them up against the building in the parking lot?
Up on the grass, I'd have to get
You
permission.
put on, you want to put them in the south end on that open area, right?
And the south end of that, on the open, that open field there, it's almost in a bowl.
But if you put them in the parking lot, where were you suggesting earlier about where?
After your suggestion of not putting them far away, because I didn't think about people walking across the parking lot, I'd put them on the curb closest to the building.
Along that curb?
Right, so,
So
and they'd
you'd
be
have
facing
to-
in towards the sidewalk.
So
So
you'd
that,
sacrifice parking spaces for
Yes.
to do that, which goes to his point. You've already got people parking up on the street because it gets too full. So that open grassy area on the south side would be the, I mean, it's plenty of room.
That's only when weather permits.
That leads to my next question. You've ever considered going graveling that? Or,
I just talked to the landlord about graveling that.
And that would be a separate request. We'd
Yeah.
require them to pave it.
but would have to be paved?
Variance as well.
If I remember correctly, there was issues with the parking already, like the number of requests, it got significantly decreased from what it required initially. And then we just had something,
There was a preliminary plat for the back half. They're going to add a shopping center, and they overbuilt that parking lot to accommodate. That's been a year or two ago.
We can limit the conditional use time frame to a season or a year and see how it works.
my biggest issue is just, I think 10's a lot.
Oh, yeah, I don't think you'll have to.
I don't think they'll support it. I mean, or you'll be, if you come, then you won't get them the next time, because
Well, I mean, during a tournament, how many people are in and out of your building on an average tournament day?
On an average tournament day, 500 to 700.
Yeah.
In and out traffic, usually come 3 waves for a basketball tournament.
That's a lot of hot dogs.
That's a lot of hot dogs.
Are most of those cars coming in and out on this west entrance here? Or are any of them using the east entrance?
No, most on the west entrance.
So on the days, instead of across the front and losing your parking places where weather's not permitting for that ground, could you not put them around this northern perimeter of driveway? Because that ties into the sidewalk as well and would keep people from walking.
Yes, I absolutely could. And
back there?
I think that would
Right
interfere
here?
with emergency services.
yeah, it
so
may
Up
block
here-
a fire-
up here it would?
It may block a fire lane or something.
That's a fire lane, yeah.
On the north side of the building next to that batting cage is what you're talking about?
How's it gonna block that because they come in off of,
I could also do part,
you know what I'm saying? They have an entrance here and they have an entrance here, so would this block it?
I see what you're saying, yeah, I don't.
I could also look at an option of putting the food trucks on the east side of the building where there's that 1 lane of parking, which is normally for staff.
Yeah.
There's no main entrances per se there, but I could open up an entrance to go get food.
There's that one little door right there.
There's a door at the top and there's easily private suite door. I'd have to,
Yeah, I just think that's just what we're trying to figure out, how do we craft the conditional use?
Sure.
In that if the weather permitting, if it's inclement weather where they can't, so primary would be that open area at the south end of the building.
yes.
The alternative choice would be sacrifice parking spaces either on the west or east side of the building up to X number of trucks. Tournament.
This is a steep drop off
I'm sure you'd have a list of criteria for size, can't be over this size to make everything fit in there.
Correct. It would have to fit in the maximum of 2 parking spots. It would have to be a normal size
Okay, so
food truck that
that's-
could drive in and out. I don't want anything to tow behind. I don't want these huge barbecue trailers or any of that stuff.
You could put it underneath this thing here.
Just kind of doing visualization here, 6 trucks would take up
All right.
just one section of your parking
I don't
spaces.
know. I mean, there's a big fence across there too. But,
Across there.
well, across the back.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Thanks,
I appreciate it, thank you.
Anyone in support or against this item, please come forward and state your name and address in its entirety. Is there a motion to approve, deny, or table this item?
50 feet of the, any trucks have to be within 50 feet of the building or something, or that would mess up the park, the
Mess up the grass.
grass? Hey, where the grassy area, what within 50 feet? Not in a, well, however you want. It's his parking lot.
Right. And if you do a motion to approve it, let's put a time limit on it.
Doing Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, do we need to put a time limit, I guess? Oh, Tuesday too, okay. Do you have any proposed time limits? You said till 10 o'clock.
Friday.
10 o'clock on Fridays?
Yeah, 6 to 10 is my normal operating tournament hours on average on Fridays, and then Saturdays are just usually end by 6. They start at either 8 or 9 in the morning.
6 in the evening.
Yeah. And then for the weekdays, I can assure you the parking lot's dead empty almost all day long. So the space in the parking for that sort of thing isn't, I don't
So
anticipate as
Tuesday
an
would be
issue.
like 11 to 1?
11 to 1 would probably be where, the hope would be that I offer a
They'll all be
food
have to be
source,
open.
so that when the high school opens up, they have one more place to eat up on that end of the city.
We get like Sundays? Sundays?
Excuse me, Sundays are usually 8 or 9 to 6 as well.
Same
They run
time.
full day, yeah.
I would assume that they would leave if you, let's say we agreed to let you do it on the weekends or whenever. They would probably leave the food truck there overnight, would they not?
I hadn't thought that far ahead, but I'd have to take your guidance on whether that's okay or not. If it isn't, then they leave, they'll have to take it with them. If it is, then I'll let them stay.
Most of them are gonna have to, he's saying that he's only gonna allow the ones that drive, not trailers with a truck, not a barbecue trailer. And I think if they're there all day on a Saturday, they're probably gonna have to restock their truck and clean.
Well, my thought was, like on the tournament weekend, those games are gonna run past 6 o'clock. And if the trucks leave out, then that's what solves your parking problem. But if they're still there, they're in the way. And you're not gonna park them in the parking lot on that south end because cars are trying to make a loop right there and get through there. And that whole back part was blocked off this year. Back there to get back around the building at one time when I tried to go through.
It was
I
blocked
don't
off
know
by
what was
what?
going on.
He's thinking the north end, he's saying.
Yeah, I know
cars
what he's talking about, but that, normally that, the throughway is always open. Or I'll put it this way, the Hernando Sportsplex has never blocked it off. I don't know what the other tenants have done, but there's no reason to block that part off, I don't think.
Well, what I was saying was though that there was people parked over in there. You
Oh,
couldn't get
parking over there
through.
would do that, yes.
What I'm saying, their parking is rough during those tournaments. And putting a food truck there is just not gonna work. It's gonna make it worse. And you're not gonna put it on that north end, because there's cars that get up in there and park. And you can't get through, and then trying to get around to the backside, if you were to put them on the backside, they can't get over there either unless they come in from this upper end. I never tried that. To see whether, from the east end, east side, I never tried to go over there, so I don't know exactly how bad that was. But I know on this west side, it was really rough.
The east side has one lane of parking, and then it's just the road. So almost no one goes to the back side of the building unless you're staff and have a key to one of the back doors. So
I was gonna say, I don't even know how you'd get out there. I never saw a way to get out to that side, of the west side of the.
there's two entrances off of Green Tea, one that's directly on the east side.
Yeah, I would restrict that north food truck area. Keep it primary, the open area south of the building and that,
Yeah, kept it out of the parking lot. It would.
yeah, keep it out of the parking lot.
Really, you've only got room for one food truck if you just, on each side of that parking lot if you put them on the south end in the parking lot.
In the grassy area south of the building.
And then you block the people trying to get around to get to that lane of park on both sides. You got to get them out of that parking lot. You can't, as far as I can see, during that tournament time. Now, during the week and other times, I don't think it's probably not a problem, but I wasn't there to know. I don't go to practice. I just go to the game when my grandson's playing.
All right, we have is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve, but I'm struggling with how to craft it. If we break it down, and can we talk about how we craft it? Or do we make a motion to approve second and then craft it?
I'd say a motion with the conditions, and then someone would second that. And then you can amend if there's, it might be a work in progress to get to the point, but I think adding the conditions during your motion would be the starting point.
I make a motion to approve with conditions. Say the conditions? Okay. Conditions are weekends only, Friday nights 6 to 10 p.m., Saturday and Sunday 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Tuesdays 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. No more than, what do we say, 30 times a year? 30 weekends, 30 weeks a year? Because that Tuesday falls in a week.
Yeah.
Primary parking south of the building in the open grassy area. Inclement weather, secondary parking, closest parking spaces on the west end, west or east of the building, does it matter? West or east, I guess that would be your choice. No more than 6 trucks at a time? 8 trucks at a time?
Say 8.
8?
The market will work it out.
No more than 8 trucks per tournament, per event? What am I missing? Oh, all trucks must have a Hernando business license. No food trailers.
And time frame?
You did it 30.
1 year?
We'll try with 1 year, see how, yeah, see if we need to amend it. Am I missing anything?
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Thornton?
Aye.
Commissioner Safley?
Aye.
Commissioner Jordan?
Aye.
Commissioner Orange?
Aye.
Commissioner Max?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashworth?
Nay.
Commissioner Skeen?
Aye.
Motion to approve this item passes. Next item is PL 1883, 1225, Monteith. Request for conditional use for a therapy/counseling office in the PUD zone. The subject property is located on the south side of Monteith, east of McInville. Cam Duncan, representing the owner. Mr. Cardoza, please present the planning commission's comments and the board.
Yes, sir, this is PL 1883. The request is for a conditional use for a therapy counseling office in the PUD zone. This is the site of Colonial Hills Church at 1225 Monteith Avenue. Ms. Cam Duncan's here tonight representing the application. The property's a bit interesting, which has kind of triggered the request tonight. The property's home to Colonial Hills Church. The underlying zoning of the church is Lee Summit PUD, which encompasses the residential component behind and also the commercial component of Walmart, the car wash, and the associated fast food along McInville Road. So all of that is Lee Summit PUD. The parcel where the Colonial Hills Church is located is actually zoned RM6 multifamily commercial. So church is an allowable use in RM6, so it's fine. So that was originally supposed to be apartments, but the church developed there and is an allowable use. Also in the RM6 zone is hospital/doctor's offices is a conditional use in the RM6 zone. So it's a convoluted way. It's operated within the church. The church is an allowable use, and they're asking to operate a small therapy or counseling office within the church, outside of the normal operating hours of the church. And that's allowable under conditional use. So that's what the purpose of the request is here for you tonight. We did receive a letter from the church stating that she's allowed to operate the business within this current facility. And similar to the last application, we may want to consider some appropriate conditions that address the criteria 1 through 6, as I just read in the last application, for traffic, fire, character of the neighborhood, general welfare. According to Ms. Cam, this is a very small therapy office, mental health counseling, and she can explain a little bit more about what that is. But the request is to locate within the church boundary. I did provide proposed motions to approve, deny, or table in your staff report, and the letter from Colonial Hills, and also the business license applications is included in your staff report. And I'm available if you got any questions.
I do have a question. Is the only reason this is coming before us is because it's on the church property but not part of what the church offers? Because I'm assuming most churches offer some types of counseling and all that, so is it just?
Yeah, the business license application is what kind of triggered it.
Okay.
Another question, Mr. Cados?
So this would be a completely separate entity that like receives payment
That's
for
my
their
understanding.
services?
There's billable insurance.
Okay.
It is a very small operation, but it
Okay.
would be a standalone, but I would let Ms. Cam confirm that.
Cam Duncan, home address 1048 Ranch Road, Hernando. So I have been a private practice licensed professional counselor for 9 years, and it's just me. I don't have any staff at all. I see about 7 clients a day and about 4 days a week. So it's really one car in and out, very, very minimal, changes to the church or to the traffic.
Any question for the applicant?
Thank you.
Anyone in support or against this item, please come forward and state your name and address in its entirety. There a motion to approve, deny, or table this item.
Ms. Duncan, what kind of timeline are you looking for the conditional use? I guess hours and then length of time, because we have to put a time on it, like 1 year, 2 years, like so on.
I'll operate from 8 to 5.
Well, like I say, but there's no formal lease, so normally in this situation, we go off of however long your lease is, and then when your lease comes up, you come back, and it's, that's what we've done in the past with some therapists, like massage therapists and stuff like that.
Yeah, the letter from the pastor said there's no formal lease agreement in place. Started today.
I just didn't know how long, like a year, 2 years.
I was thinking 5 years.
And whatever we do, if the church decides you gotta go, then it's, that was over with anyway.
Right, yeah. Okay, that's fine. I make a motion to approve, the application by Cam Duncan representing Remedy Soul Care for a conditional use to operate a massage therapy counseling office at 1225 Monteith Avenue, better known as the church, Colonial Hills Church. Property is located on the south side of Monteith Avenue, east of Mackinville, specifically 1225 Monteith. Section 3, Township 7, Range 7, items 1 through 6, for a term of 5 years.
Second.
Commissioner Thorne?
Aye.
Commissioner Sadly?
Aye.
Commissioner Jordan?
Aye.
Commissioner Owens?
Aye.
Commissioner Mack?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashworth?
Aye.
Commissioner Skeen?
Aye.
Motion to approve this item passes. Next item is PL 1884, 3071 Industrial Drive North. Request for a variance from the design regulation to allow metal panels and a roof pitch of 112. The subject property is located on the west side of Industrial Drive, south of Vaden Drive. Butch Davis, owner of the property. Mr. Cardoza, please present to staff planning report and comments.
Yes, sir. This is PL 1884. As you mentioned, it's a request for design standard variance. Greg Smith is here tonight with Mendrop Engineering representing Butch Davis, who's the owner of the property. I did include the full building plans, but the general request is to allow a metal facade, and the pitch is at a 112 rather than flat, which is dictated in our design regulations. So again, similar to the last application, the zoning's a bit odd on this property. It's zoned C4, which is similar to a PUD. It's planned commercial. It's where an applicant presents a plan and all the uses. The setbacks are similar to that of M1. Previously, in 2012, this site was zoned from M1 to C4. And so if you've been on that street, there's lots of, well, I say lots, there's a metal building across the street and the sheriff's department building and the jail. Most of the street is zoned M1. Previously, this parcel was zoned M1. In 2012, it was zoned to C4 to restrict some of the uses of M1 being that close to Vaden. And the catch with that is commercial zoning is when our design regulations pick up. And so metal facade as presented would not be allowed. The building plans you see in your staff report, about, I'd say, third or fourth page in, you can see a design of what the building was proposed to look like. So there are brick elements, but the rear and side of the building are proposed to be metal, and so the C4 is what the catch was in that application. So he's asked for a variance of the design regulations to allow for that metal facade as shown.
And then the brick will wrap.
The discussion portion of the criteria, I'll read these quickly for the record. This is a variance application, so the special conditions and circumstances exist are peculiar to land structures or buildings involved, and not generally applicable to other land structures or buildings in the same district. The literal enforcement of these provisions of these standards would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties within the same district under the terms of this ordinance. Special conditions and circumstances don't result from the actions of the applicant or not based upon economic considerations, and granting the variance would not confer on the applicant any special privilege otherwise denied by this ordinance to other land structures or buildings in the same district. He did provide responses to each of those, and I included those in your staff report. As in other applications, I did provide proposed motions to approve, deny, or table. And then, as you can see, the streetscape and landscaping requirements are all in line with the commercial design regs. It's just the facade of the building is what he's requesting a variance upon. And those plans are included on sheet A2.1 in your staff report. Greg's here tonight representing the owner, and I'm available if you got any questions.
The applicant, please come forward and state your name and address in its entirety.
Good evening. Greg Smith with Mendrop Engineering. Representing Ablett tonight. I don't have a lot to add other, that what y'all have seen the buildings that Mr. Davis has built before, and you got one before you. It's going to be similar in nature. And I think in addition to the community over there. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to elaborate on any of them that you may have.
He has several buildings in the Nesbitt Industrial Park.
Yes, sir. He built just about all those in there.
And we were trying to look actually for the meeting again. Those I know there's brick, but also the rest of the facade, is that metal?
It's metal panel. It don't look like, when you hear metal building, you think sheet metal, but it's not what this is like. It's like a metal panel, interlocking panel. I'm not an architect, so I can't tell you exactly how that works, but it looks really good.
That's what would be on this?
Yes, sir.
The same metal panel?
It'd be the same building.
Same kind of building he's building at Nesbitt Industrial.
Okay, all right. I think that kind of answers what you and I were talking about then.
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
It's called
Probably the
standard
same
C.
plans as almost that that building that's next to the gym, on that front there that faces, right when you turn in the industrial park on the right.
Yes,
the
sir.
one that faces Pleasant Hill, right next to the gym.
The back and sides will be the same kind of metal?
I believe that's correct.
You're talking about where the men drop office is. Yeah, this would be similar if you're going towards the animal shelter. They're all very, very similar. There's the standing seam metal fronts and sides, and there's the brick accents in different iterations, something like on a triangle, or that's the building he's wanting to build. It's almost the same set of plans as the rest of Nesbit Industrial. I think the one up at the front's a little bit different. You can street view them. I'll show you the,
Right along there.
Problem is,
They're all
streets
burned.
may not be updated.
So-
You can see you can see how the sides look on that one.
I mean, that's the one that I recall, that I'm going off memory.
That's generally what the building's gonna look
Yeah,
like.
that's a metal panel there is what those are.
The standing seam in the front, they're horizontal versus vertical on the sides, and the brick accents, that's the materials they're asking for right there.
But the sides and the back is gonna be vertical seams.
And the horizontal in the front.
Might be visible from the Vaden, from the neighborhood behind it?
Behind?
Yeah.
There's a pretty good tree line back there behind it, and we're not planning on disturbing that.
Can you pull up the street view of that? also?
And X-axis way down there in the bottom, the rear of the property is real low, really not developable, and there's a sewer line running through there, so. Yeah, it took me a little while to find it.
I know you've got a good setback, I think it's 60 feet.
Down there to the right, yeah.
So,
There we go, here it is. See, you can see,
this is the tree line that's
Right.
proposed to remain. The building's proposed to go here.
we really have no use for that property down there in that bottom, because it's really low. So I would anticipate anything being taken out down there.
That's the side of the building here. You can see on this lot, of course.
Well, the sides will be visible, I know the sheriff's department right there and other, what is the sheriff's department sides look like?
Same.
It's the vertical? Okay. That's vertical, that's vertical.
Streets similar too.
Do a little trick, I didn't know you could do that with Google Earth.
So yeah,
Zooming in like that.
in the lot, I can pull it up for you real quick, but basically this is a pie-shaped lot. This is two lots here. This is the side of the proposed building. I'll just go to it real quick. See how that's the lot in question. The street view we're at was just right here.
Immediately next to the sheriff's office.
Yeah, and on the landscaping requirement, that was one of our questions, is the tree line to remain, because the ordinance actually prefers you leave, if you have a row of woods, to leave those alone rather than tear them out and replant, so that's something we're navigating with them, but that's the lot 3071.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone in support against this item? Is there a motion to approve, deny, or table this item?
I'll make a motion to approve a variance requested by Butch Davis for allowable exterior materials as shown in the applicant exhibits. Subject property is located on the west side of the Industrial Drive, south of Vaden Drive, at 3071 Industrial Drive with these add-on options A through D.
Yes, second?
Second.
Commissioner Thorne?
Aye.
Commissioner Sadley?
Aye.
Commissioner Jordan?
Aye.
Commissioner
Aye.
Commissioner Max?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashworth?
Aye.
Commissioner Skeen?
Aye.
Motion to approve this item passes. Final item is PL 1886. Delta Landing Commercial Subdivision Phase 3. Request for final plat approval of Delta Landing Commercial Subdivision Phase 3. One lot on .54 acres. The subject property is located on the west side of McInville Road, north side of I-269. The property is currently zoned PUD. Nick Krugen, Silver Link, representing the owner. Mr. Cadoza, staff report and comments, please.
Yes, sir. This is the last application tonight, 1886, the request for final plat approval, Delta Landing Commercial Phase 3. This is within the Delta Landing PUD, so the underlying zoning was changed originally in 2007, revised in 2023, and this proposal tonight will be the third loft building that's within the downtown area of the Delta Landing PUD. This lot in question is .54 acres, and it's the same setbacks and proposed conditions as the previous two. With this being a PUD, the preliminary plat was done with the zoning, and so this does substantially conform with the preliminary plat. I've done a rough highlight on the back of the second page of your staff report of where this building will be located. Two buildings are currently under construction. This would be the third. And as I mentioned, this is part of their little downtown square cluster that's towards the front of the development, in front of the roundabout. I did a proposed motion, and the conditions in there are the same as the other phases. Of note, the only thing is that hatched area is the common area for that shared parking between the buildings. So they're going to be under an owner association for maintenance. But this is lot 3, so it'll be the third building in their downtown square. Chase Dabbs is here with Johnny McBride representing the application. I'm available if you got any questions.
Good evening. Chase Dabbs, 3624 Madison Ridge. Just nothing to add, just here if y'all have any questions.
Questions for the applicant?
Thank you.
Anyone support or against this item? A motion to approve, and now table this item.
I'll make a motion to grant final plat approval for Delta Landing Commercial Phase 3, consisting of one commercial lot of .54 acres west of McInville Road and south of Pleasant Hill in Section 31, Township 2 South, Range 7, based upon a finding that the submitted plat, final plat generally conforms to the requirements of the city's codes and ordinance, subject to the conditions 1 through 10.
Second.
Commissioner Thorne?
Aye.
Commissioner Safley?
Aye.
Commissioner Jordan?
Aye.
Commissioner Arndt?
Aye.
Commissioner Max?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashworth?
Aye.
Commissioner Skeen?
Aye. Motion to approve, this item passes. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.